wasn't too bad, you know. It's like,
Okay.
He was in a bed.
We'll call the meeting back to order, and we're on 11.1. Community Development Recreation Development Agreement Application, Twin Rivers Park Limited.
Isn't it prerequisite that you guys all got to be over 6 feet in that department?
Emily keeps us honest in that.
Oh, Emily makes up the difference. That's girl, Emily.
Dave, the floor is yours. Morning.
Yeah, so we received an application for a development agreement for Hilltop Estates. The owners are Twin Rivers Park Limited. They're looking to bring their existing 14-unit land lease community into compliance.
How did they get out of compliance?
They've never actually followed through to have some structures and new units have development permits, so.
They never applied and they were supposed to.
Do they have building permits?
There's some building permits, some that were processed but never finalized. Like they didn't get their occupancy at the end.
But that's not,
So-
we have other, that's not totally out of the norm. There are other
I understand.
things like that. But yeah, generally it was, and some of these predate our recent zoning changes. So these go back to the previous bylaw where the numbers when a development agreement was required were different. So essentially they did come through building, it just wasn't tagged at the time as needing development.
So now we know it is and we're not in compliance and we're trying to get it rectified.
And yeah, there's a number of things over a number of years that were
So did
kind of
they do this on their own, or was there from staff?
They came in to get a zoning confirmation letter for, I think, a sale, and it got flagged at that point.
Oh, well, that's good. So they want to go,
Yeah,
so they'll be going in compliance. Well, that's great.
that's right,
good.
yeah. So the units are existing and this would get them into compliance and
Yeah.
from what we understand, allow the sale
Yeah.
to occur.
Sure.
And are we making any concessions to bring it into compliance, or does it comply?
I guess that's what we'll
That's part of
we'll
the-
get
yeah,
into.
it's
yeah.
not-
Wait for you to finish?
Well, that'll be the part of the staff report that we would bring forward if council gives us the direction to proceed.
I think that this is honestly no big deal. It's this is one of those little communities within my community that I never hear about. It just hums along, and it's one of the few areas that we have that have, like, you know, housing that's, you know, within reach of many people, and I don't really see any issue with this. It just they were going to sell it, and it's one of those, I think, epiphany moments where you're like, oh, paperwork's not.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see any issue with it. My question always is, how did it get to this point? How are they able to do this if they're offside with the bylaw? I mean, how can they build if they need a development agreement and don't have one?
So
That's, I guess part of it is the mobile nature of the dwelling units, is there might be an empty spot for a few years, and then someone else will bring a different unit in, and then maybe the owner's not aware that they have to actually get that permit, but.
This is the one that Glenn Cook started?
it's Cook Drive, so it may well.
Linton or Glenn, one of the Cook boys. Okay, I know where it is now.
And I think, at least my understanding, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, because Paul's been digging into this more, is I think it was a slow and gradual expansion. And to Paul's point, there's been some units come in and out, and it was also done, like some of them were almost not
I think
quite
it
20 years
pre-existed
ago.
even requiring a development agreement, and then we brought in development agreement
Right, so the rules have
requirements.
changed a couple of
The rules
times.
have changed and we never got caught.
Yeah, and it just was one of those things where, and we, back then it was, you know, it was general basic basically everywhere outside of Chester Village. And so over the years, we've ramped up that zoning and gotten better. And also, I think it's probably fair to say that like development and building are in
Yes.
there's better communication and workflow between those departments now than there was
Absolutely.
15 years ago, for sure.
Yeah, I feel that that's probably getting at your question. I think that's probably realistically what happened. It's just, it was when the building permits were issued, nobody went to look and see if there was a development permit in place. Just,
And there probably
and
didn't
I
need
think
to be a
that,
development.
I can say from my own outside professional experience, that linkage is stronger than it was 10 years
Didn't
ago.
need it at the time too.
Well,
15 years ago, you wouldn't have needed a
No.
development permit for this development, likely, and then at some point, we changed it, and you needed a development agreement, and then it probably has just never got caught since then.
I think it was 2004 or something, was you'd have to
So,
get a permit after that. There was 8 units there before that.
so direct staff to prepare a draft development agreement and hold public information, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yep.
To resolve the issue.
yes, please. I'll move that we proceed.
Second that motion.
Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's in the law right away, didn't it?
11.1, Community Development Agreement Application, Twin Rivers Parkland.
That was
Oh, that's the one I just did, yes, okay.
So we got
Road name should be next, right?
Oh, Community Development, new road name.
Great, we have a new private road name
These
proposed.
are usually relatively straightforward.
This one's a straightforward one. It's in the community of Windsor Road. The one property owner has proposed the name Dordean Lane. It is a unique road name. There's no objections from the fire department or public works. The only note of comment is the spelling. And the provincial guidelines recommend not to use the extra accents or punctuation, so. It'd be up to council, but I would recommend to leave off the accent of the E.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we recommend the name.
Second. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Something. Things
Thank
are
you.
easy when you come in.
Yeah.
Planning matters. Amendment protected watershed zone.
I have a conflict.
Okay. Let the record show that on Rubino, there's conflict.
Left the chamber.
Is Jimmy gonna come up with?
You can come up now, you can come up after. I've got a full backup team.
new staff member.
Okay, so staff received an application from property owner, Jimmy Rages, to amend the municipal planning strategy to allow the creation of new lots in the protected watershed zone without having lot frontage on a public road. So staff are requesting direction on how to proceed with the request. Just a little bit of background, the protected watershed zone was originally in the village plan. When we implemented the new municipal planning strategy in 2020, we kind of changed the buffers a bit, or sorry, the boundaries a bit, and these were implemented in the municipal planning strategy in 2020. So it's not new necessarily, but it's new to the NPS. So the zone is only located in one area, it's around Spectacle Lake. The intent of the zone is to protect water source and to prevent contamination of identified potential drinking water sources and their associated watershed by limiting development. The reason we're here is there's a line in the policy that conflicts with the applicant's request. So that line states that the protected watershed zone shall prohibit new public roads and subdivision on private roads. In the application, the applicant included a cover letter, and it notes that they feel the requirement for all lots in the zone must front on the public roads, make development unviable due to the added cost of building roads to standards. And the applicant is requesting that council waive the requirement of asphalt-topped public roads in the protected watershed zone. So instead allowing private roads, or I suppose perhaps a public road, but not meet those public road standards of asphalt's topping. So this would require an amendment to the municipal planning strategy zone policies, which is a public process similar to the development agreement process. So we do like a PIM, go to PAC, bring it back to council, do a public hearing, that whole sort of process. And like I said, the current policies don't align with the request right now. There's 60 properties, approximately 60 properties in the zone, so those would be affected. I think around 3 of them are developed with some sort of dwelling unit on the properties. If you scroll up one, there's a little map there. It shows the zone, and then there is a little orange outline with a star. You can probably see it on paper copy better. That is the property that the property owner has. There's a little portion of it in the protected watershed, thank you. And then the rest is in the mixed use zone, but still applies. So I have 3 options in front of us. The first option would be to direct staff to proceed with the applicant's request to allow new lots in the protected watershed zone without frontage on a public road. So we would dig into that and sort of look at what those implications are, probably talk to Public Works a little bit, and then see what changes would need to be made to the NPS and implications to the land use bylaw. Option 2 would provide sort of like a more holistic approach. This would provide opportunity for staff to do a larger review of the zone and kind of look at what's determined, why the zone is needed today, potential changes to the area, zone standards, if we need the zone in place. I know there's a water study being conducted by staff in the surrounding area, which could affect the need to have the protected watershed zone in that area, and as well, planning staff are looking at the bigger picture of the suburbs of the village. So option 2 would allow staff to sort of assess it at the bigger picture, and then option 3, NPS amendments are a little different from the development agreement land use bylaw amendments, so it's a policy change, which allows council the ability to basically say they aren't interested in opening that part of the document at this point and perhaps tabling the request. So option 3 would allow council to reject the request entirely and leave the zone as is, protecting the watershed from any major development.
The broader context,
Yeah.
just suggesting it's, I mean, we did all this because the intent was we may possibly need this as a source of public water.
Right.
It doesn't look like that's necessarily, I don't know for certain, but it doesn't look like that's the road we'll be going down anymore. I mean, maybe we'll have to, I don't know. But, I mean, it seems like groundwater is the better option these days.
Yeah, I think that one of the important considerations is whether or not we've reached that point, that we've made that decision. And because if we haven't, then we want to be careful about what we do.
Yeah.
You know, it has been protected for a significant amount of time.
Yeah, I know why it's protected, yeah, when we bought a lot of land there.
But if we have, then we probably should look at the whole zone and you know, could open that area up.
Well, I don't know if we come to the conclusion, but I know that it's out there. Derek?
Can you put that map back up that shows the star where the property is? Someone has a magic.
It's just a little
Okay.
blade, just give it.
So how much,
Can you see it?
oh,
So it's a small portion of the
Yeah.
total lot. I don't know. Do you know the?
I don't know.
But it's, yeah.
Where's the outfall? We're at,
Right here.
okay, yeah. It's ways away from
would there
that.
be an option of changing that boundary of the zone? I mean, Mr. Rayfuse, is your property, how much land do you have there?
That's about a 75 acre piece.
And how much is in the green layer there?
And I can tell you probably maybe 10 acres maybe.
Okay, so you got 65 acres there presumably that you could develop.
Yes.
This,
Just that 10 acres that you can.
and is
Yes,
that,
which is,
The value of the
you
property.
can't anyway, it's pretty swampy there, so you wouldn't want to do anything there anyway,
but does it prevent you from doing anything because of that? Can't you develop the other 60 acres or
That
whatever?
would change?
I could, but I'm not looking for that right now. I just want to be up on the top side and do a little subdivision up there, right?
Can you show me on the map where you mean?
Can you bring it up a bit?
I'm just trying to get my head around where you.
So if what he wants to develop isn't in the green zone, what's the problem?
Move it up.
Back to the
Yes,
orange.
move it up a little bit, please.
His,
Well, yeah, but some of it comes like down like this
Yeah.
and like up like that.
So you're gonna access it from that green road
Access it from here. Yeah, it's Chester Downs.
for Chester Down?
Yeah. Well, up here, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, anything that was outside of the protected watershed zone would just go by that mixed use zone. So the issue here is part of what's looking to be developed is in the zone. And we have, in the land use bylaw, it says no subdivision of private roads. And that was where the request was requesting to allow a public road that, or a non-standard road. But then we actually, in policy, also have a statement that Emily mentioned here that says no new public roads or subdivision on private roads. And so that's where it requires an MPS change, because the policy basically says no new roads, no new subdivision in that zone. And that's how it has sat for, since it was
10 years,
created.
12 years.
Yeah.
What's the policy that you mentioned about asphalt type roads? And when you mentioned,
in subdivision, I think a private road needs to meet municipal spec, which includes asphalt.
But that applies everywhere.
Right, if you want a road to be turned over or to be up to the,
Right.
yeah.
But not to create a subdivision and build a house.
Correct. But in this case, there's policy in the planning strategy that says prohibit new public roads and subdivision on private roads. So that means that there's no option really for development off of anything that's not
Is that
existing.
making any sense? I'm having trouble finding some sense to that.
Given the purpose of the zone to
Yes,
protect the
but-
lake, it makes perfect
Yeah,
sense.
given the purpose of
Makes
the-
perfect sense,
But we're not gonna
absolutely.
use it as a watershed, it appears that we're not.
100%. And that's the decision council's faced with.
Right.
If council is certain,
Yeah.
and they're never gonna change their mind that Spectacle Lake is a water source,
We're not at this.
then let's do that. And if not, then that's the
Then you
tricky
go with
part.
option one and just deal with this particular issue.
Or option two. But option two, but are you doing this review part of the plan review?
No, this is outside of the village, so.
No, but under your option two here, you're saying planning staff are currently looking at the bigger picture.
Leave a map up there.
Right, there was some discussion a few weeks or
There was
maybe
a
a month
couple, there
ago.
was a discussion about taking the village plan and the MPS and where they overlap, in that area where they
Yeah,
overlap.
that's right.
And trying to make sure that they're better aligned in the MPS and the secondary planning strategy.
Sort of the transition between.
That transition
Yeah,
zone,
and so this
so
would
could
be,
be part of
could
it.
be part of that review if we wanted to. There's a lot of options, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm just getting back to the roads piece and so if we make this change, will it apply all across the municipality?
Just to this zone.
Just for
This zone only
This is the
occurs
only
here.
zone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Right,
This is the
so,
only place
so it
this
would
zone.
across, to Emily's point, all the 60 or so properties in this zone would be impacted, but there's nowhere else that we have the protected watershed zone right now.
So option two would give us the most information.
It would give us the most options.
It would give us the most options, yeah, and likely,
It's also the most work.
yeah, I was gonna say likely take the longest to come back on.
That's what I'm
because-
saying, how long would it take us to do one, and how long would it take us to do two?
Well, even in one, there's some significant decisions to be made because
Yeah.
it really, the question we're gonna have is what's the purpose of the zone if we're now allowing development in it? If it's a
Yeah.
protected watershed zone, why are we allowing development in it? That's not a standard thing that we would normally do. And so if we're gonna justify keeping a protected watershed zone but saying it's open for development,
Then that doesn't make any
there's some
sense.
mental math that has to be done there to make some sense in policy. Option two, if we're looking at that, essentially the next, what we're talking about is like a mini plan review for the periphery of the village, the area that's in the municipality, but just outside the village. So let's say Robinson's Corner through the Commons, through, towards East Chester, and we would pick the protected watershed zone up as part of that. The scope of that is really undetermined, because that was just.
That's a
Along
large
with the
piece.
law.
Yeah. I don't mean that it would be a 5-year review like the village plan review, but it would be a more significant piece of work because we need to, all the other issues we talked about, J-class roads and servicing would be a big part of that review too.
So the simplest solution is option one.
Frankly, the simplest solution is option 3.
Oh,
I'm not recommending necessarily that, but the simplest solution is option 3, is leave it alone until we're ready to touch it. But
I think option three is an option. I think we have to do something. Mr. Rafe, again,
We
what
just keep adding to the work.
can't you do that you want to do with this?
What can't I do?
Yeah, what is it you want to do that?
I just wanna build some houses, right? I'm just a contractor, as you guys all know, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing all my life, and I just wanna go in there, it's family land, I just wanna go in and build a few houses, but to pave that, this totally makes that impractical to me. 'Cause I don't have $1 million.
The paving piece is the.
I don't have
There's a
$1
misunderstanding.
million to pave that road. That would just be
So how do we solve the paving
ridiculous,
issue?
right?
So no fault of your own, because when you first started talking to Heather,
Yeah.
in the land use bylaw, it talks that paving is the solution, and if we change the paving requirement,
Right.
there's actually a bigger problem. In policy, it doesn't matter if it's paved, no new roads in that zone. That's what we have to deal with. So it's not even, the paving is what you first ran into, but there's actually even a
Does the paving issue get resolved with an amendment that says you're allowed to do new roads? Or does
yeah,
the paving
we
issue still
could do
exist?
that all together,
So
yeah.
if we just, all we really need to do is allow them to put a road in.
Yeah, I plan to do it to engineered standards anyway,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm just a small fish in a big pond,
Yeah.
that's not, that makes it practical.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I just don't want to add this whole massive plan review piece to you when we haven't even had a discussion about the workload
I
and
mean,
everything else,
yeah.
and what else is the
So
priority.
option one would be that, we'd look at what policy changes would be needed to allow new roads in the zone. We'd look at what those impacts
Would be.
might be on the zone, and then there could be some options there for council. What type of a road do you want to allow in there, or, yep.
And as far as asphalt, wouldn't that be worse for the water?
That's what I was just gonna
You know what I
say.
mean? Like, I'm not environmentalist, but I mean.
It runs on faster, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tara?
The only piece of information that I can offer to council is that my understanding is that the well drilling that we are doing to look at potential other sources is happening this month, I believe, and I think it's Fred's intention to bring that back to council in October or November as soon as we can. So I would think that by the end of November, you should have at least a sense of
Whether that's even
whether
possible.
groundwater is even an option. And so that may play into all of this, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah,
give you that
probably will.
information.
I am asked that the same slide, the green we kept on the screen.
Sorry, I was trying to show the options.
Yeah, understood. Okay, now, the green area that's on your property,
There's one behind you, Derek, you might be able to see easier, buddy.
well, I have to want to turn my back to you. You want to build on that green area of houses or?
No.
No.
No, it's up above that.
So why is it stopping you?
But I mean, some lots that I got in my mind in the plan is goes right down to that corner of the lake, right? But there's no building going on down there.
The big problem is the bylaw currently says he has to pay for it.
Yes.
No,
And
that's
that's,
not,
It's,
No.
That's not the
Are you planning
issue.
to subdivide it?
that's what we're trying to say, that,
I plan on subdividing that top side.
Yes.
Can he do
So it's
what he
not
wants
that
to
he
do
won't build a
anyway?
house
No.
there? No. He doesn't want to build a house in the green, he wants to be able to subdivide and create lots there. And
Yes.
the bylaw and the policy right now are preventing him from being able to subdivide and build lots, or
it
create lots.
says no roads
It
and
has
no
nothing to do
subdivision.
with the building of the
Yeah,
house,
right.
it's the
Yeah,
subdivision.
no lots and no roads and no subdivision in the green is currently what the,
But he doesn't even want to build in the green.
But
But
he's
he wants to create
subdividing it.
lots.
Because
Yeah.
the
That
green,
lot,
It would
just
touch
like I want
that.
to create lots that
Right,
go
so the
down
house
to that
would be on
point,
the side.
right?
Right.
The house is up here, but he
Yes,
has access
exactly.
to the water.
You
I
got
just
some
want
water
to
frontage.
create that, like, lot that come down to here, right? And it
like
sort of goes
long, like so you get a
this.
piece of water
You know what I mean?
frontage.
Okay, well then,
because
Well,
that
decide
should be
whether it's a
protected if it's
watershed.
swampy.
Exactly, that's,
how we.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody can do anything there anyway.
Yeah.
So your
As far
lots,
as
so
the
your
building
building, they'll have, well, they have access to the water, but maybe.
Yes,
I think
that's it.
The thing is, if people clear their lot and put fertilizer on the lawn.
I don't know if
Yeah.
council recalls the discussions with the Burtons several years ago about developing in this zone and the bonding to bring in a shipping container. So there was, it's the same rules that we were dealing with then. So again,
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of lots out there for sale around here, right? You know, and we need housing, I think everybody
Oh, yeah,
agrees with
that's
that,
not an
right?
issue.
So,
It's just until we determine whether or not it's until it's required as a water.
Is this the area, Garrett, that we've identified as a growth area?
no, that work hasn't come back. I think that's with economic development, the growth strategy piece. So no, it
We had
hasn't.
a couple seminars on it where we
Yeah.
identified.
No, this wouldn't have been.
No,
one.
because
It
because
doesn't
it's a
have,
protected watershed.
and it doesn't,
I don't mean the actual green, but I mean
Around it.
around the green.
I mean, along
Close
the
index
number.
area is potentially an area where you might have a
Mhm.
growth area.
The commons area.
Depending on what happens with the watershed zone. Right, so you would need to take a close look at the water, do you need the watershed zone or not?
Yeah, we need to make that decision.
You need to make that decision, and if that's a decision, then this might be an area where you would might identify it as a potential growth area.
Well, first we have to determine whether or not we're going to get rid of the watershed
Yes,
issue.
And that information should be coming the next month or so.
that's my understanding.
That makes sense.
Some information, whether it's enough or not, we'll see.
Tina?
Thank you. So I'm reluctant to ask some questions because then it will just show my lack of maybe understanding, but that hasn't stopped me, right? So in terms of your letter, in terms of the first paragraph, your concerns with the potential negative impact of developing new asphalt roads on protected watershed around Spectacle Lake. So your concern is the asphalt piece.
Yeah.
So I agree
It's
with
not
you.
elected to anything.
I agree with you in the second paragraph around the, doesn't that really just go against what we're trying to see happen with the natural flow of water course and streams and just trickling of water around the paving and the fact that we have a lakeside, is it called lakeside overview? Lakeside, or?
Lakeside zone.
Lakefront,
Oh, the lakeside
lakefront,
zone.
lakefront,
Yes,
lakefront
overlay, yeah.
Lakefront overview or whatever.
Overlay.
So, because we have a certain percentage in there that we've dictated that can be hard surface, which is
Yes.
neat, right?
Yes, that's right.
So, and that's why we did that,
Mhm.
because of the natural ebb and flow of what makes sense within our soils and waters. So why does that not make sense why does it make sense to me what he's asking then? We should not have that.
Well, I think, and again, there's to no fault of Jimmy's, there was a little misunderstanding when he first was asking the question to our development team, what would I need to do to develop in this zone? It was the asphalt was the limiting factor in the bylaw. But when we looked at the policy, it just said, it actually went further and said no new roads at all, whether or not they're
Because it's
paved.
a wastewater.
So I
I
think,
don't know what your policies say.
yeah, so I think if the asphalt was the only issue,
Yes.
that would be a legitimate thing to say, maybe we
Okay.
should change. To the
Okay.
point, asphalt runs off faster, it does create, that runoff is faster than it is on dirt roads, and we look at, but we're faced with the larger issue of not, it may end up, if we allow development in there, then we could say, no, you don't have to pave them. But we're tasked with that first question of, do we even open the zone up to roads of any type?
Okay.
Yeah,
Because I was just trying to zero in if that
Yeah.
was a concern.
yeah,
Is it possible to deal with that?
right,
But
right.
it's not just simply
It's
the asphalt.
not just that, and I think there's a good case to be made for the asphalt
Yeah.
not being a requirement.
Yeah, but we have to determine first, the big question is, are we gonna keep this as
Right.
as a watershed?
Right,
Yeah.
and if we think about a lot of the other discussions we've had around the lakefront overlay and the lakeside zone and Solder Lake and those discussions, this protected watershed zone is like the ultimate standard, because this says no development. The lakeside zone, allows 1 to 2 lots on
Yeah.
larger lots and that kind of thing. This is and that's why I think it's such a big decision or yeah.
Yes.
What do you wanna do, people?
Well, I'd like to do, I mean, we need development, and I know there's certain rules, but, I
It's
mean,
good for
I'd
the
like to try to do
community, to all
anything
the
that's gonna,
contractors, right?
I'd like to try to help the builders, if we can, I mean, if it's possible. If we can fit that, accommodate it in some fashion, that's what I'd like to see. I mean, we're all about housing here, as everywhere, every place is. So,
We start,
I'd like to try to make it, to get there if we can, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Sharon?
Agree, but I mean, we went through a lot of effort to designate this as a watershed zone and purchase property to allow that. So I think we need to, at the very least, wait until we get our report regarding our other potential source of water, and then make a decision if we can, because, we over the years of, if we have another source, we went, through a lot of effort to purchase land to create this. But I mean, I agree, we do need development, and if it stays so far away from the lake, I really don't see a problem with it, but the regulations are
Crop
there.
setbacks, right?
And will have to be changed if that's what we decide. But I think we need that information first, or we're kicking ourselves in the,
I just think it'd be good for the community, all the contractors, the money goes through Chester, right? You're gonna get a lot more tax money at the end of the day, you know what I mean? Give us the
If
municipality.
we open it up here though, then the whole zone would be changed, right?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
then it would be no longer suitable for.
change the boundary of the watershed zone.
That would be the
That'd be a
solution.
possible thing to do.
Could you change the
We could,
boundary?
except if you look at this is adjacent to the lake.
Well,
So-
I know that.
The watershed zone, the shape of it, that green, and you'll notice like it goes up past the 103, like it's a fairly significant area.
East Land.
My understanding is that was based on previous staffs using GPS and best efforts to map that. I mean, I'm not confident it would make enough of a difference. That would be another option if council wanted to have that professionally delineated. That could change the boundaries, but I don't think it would help this situation, because if you look, it's literally on the lake. It's not, we're not talking about the
Yeah.
upper reaches potentially of the watershed.
Yeah, if you change it there, then how are you gonna say no to somebody up there, right?
Right.
But I think that's where the water was coming from.
Yes,
That's why the
yeah,
boundary was
exactly.
extended that way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And that's typical of watershed protection, is you
Yeah.
would want to map where all the inputs and inflows are.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's why it
It's usually
was.
based on contours, right?
Yeah.
So the water in that green area is ideally feeding into that one.
And it is, look.
Floyd?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the request at all, but I think we'd be negligent if we didn't at least wait for the report on groundwater. Because, you know, if we make this decision and then the report comes back that that's not an option, we made a bad decision. I think we need to
And we
wait.
only have to wait.
It's only a month or two away, that report here. I don't think that that's gonna cause you a lot of grief. I would hope it doesn't anyway.
If council was interested, this might sound negative, but if, for example, council rejected the application today, we could refund the fees. And then if council decided it's not going to be the watershed and we should look at that zone anyway, the council could take it on as a project of their own, is what I'm saying, to take the onus off the applicant from applying to make that change. We'd refund the fees, and then we could, to Councillor Shafford's point, when the report
We're
came
only
in.
a month or two away from knowing whether we're gonna keep it or not.
Yeah.
And I
Give him
think,
his money back.
I'm not even worried about the money.
No,
I just
no.
wanna get it resolved. I've been
Yes.
working on it for a couple of years
No,
now.
and then,
Not getting very far.
well, I think if we determine that we have another source of water,
right,
Yeah.
then we're gonna change the zone.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then once the zones change, the
Well,
road
we would
issue would
crazy
go
to
away.
do it.
Like, you'd be able to do just a
That's
private
right.
road.
Cause I can't, I can't afford $1 million to pay that road, right?
No.
I'm gonna be up more than a minute.
But can we've identified a problem with the paving of the road. What would it take just to eliminate, I'm not gonna help them now, but
That won't help them now.
I know that,
Yeah,
I said.
it
But
wouldn't.
if it's a flaw, is it something we should get rid of?
I think it would be best to go with this approach, because then if the zone disappears entirely, then we don't even need to, I don't think there's much sense in picking at it unless we intend to keep it.
That was my question.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we gonna do? Sounds like we're rejecting it.
Sounds for a couple months anyway.
Yeah, until we get the results of the.
And I think, Jimmy, you probably see the logic in that. I mean,
Yes, I understand.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're not saying no, we're
No.
just saying
Yeah.
we gotta wait.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of saying we're rejecting it, I'd rather, can we defer it? Now, you wanna give him his money back, what are we talking about, how much money?
Oh, it's
$500.
$1,000, yeah.
So can we, rather than reject it, can we defer it? I mean, I don't want it off the
Yeah.
table.
yeah. No, I don't think it's a rejection.
So I think if we defer it, we wouldn't give the money back. And the idea is give the money back, reject it, and then if council in a month decides that they're going to proceed with it, it would be a council-driven
Where
application.
he
Yes,
wouldn't even
exactly.
have to
And
make.
then
Exactly,
you wouldn't have to
exactly.
make application and pay for that.
Right.
Okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, somebody prepared to move that?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion carried. Nothing's going simple this morning.
No, nothing does.
But it's nice that you came in.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I like that, because it's, you're getting the information, it's not, it's perfect that you come in, you understand, and
Yeah,
so.
more.
I mean, I know, but it's nice to have someone here, that makes instead of you communicating to him
Right.
and then back,
In between,
yeah,
yes.
absolutely, I wish we did more of that.
Yeah.
That's very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
depends
don't
on.
make daytime meetings either, right?
What's that?
Thanks,
Not
sir.
everyone make daytime.
No, I know, but I like to see that.
No, but I'm just
It
saying,
makes a lot of
that's
sense.
another point, right? The time of meetings,
We could change them to the evening.
well, we, you know, in terms of engagement and.
We discussed that before. I think we did used to do that.
Okay, we are on letter from Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee, Ed Community, yeah, yeah. And I get it someplace, I don't know where. Appoint Scott Luke to Lunenburg County Accessibility Advisory Committee for a term of 2 years.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve.
Seconder,
Second.
discussion?
I just, if I can, nothing about this, but I'm on that committee, and I just wanted to let everybody know here that Mahone Bay's adopted their accessibility plan. The council's adopted their plan, So Ellen is, you know, our staff probably knows, she's working out, every plan's different, but they started in the home day, so finally, after, I think after 3 years or 4 years of that committee, they're starting to see some headway. But it's challenging. I mean, everybody's different. I mean, we're looking at one, you know, we might have to build a building, and it's not as simple as moving a few things. It's very complicated.
Yeah.
Because Tammy sits in on all the meetings as well, and then it's, yeah.
Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. Now,
Council meeting on November 16th.
council meeting, so I just need a motion to approve having one.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, motion's carried. And now I'm on to, you want to write a letter to yourself?
Yeah, just for some background. It's so, like we've, you know, they did I want to say the paving project from Vaughn's Road and Western Shore to Martins River, they did a great job there. But the contractor from last year did not finish the other section because there were underground wires at Bell at the time, said we don't have time to move them. So that was left go last fall. So here we are in October the 12th, and in speaking with Mitchell, our area supervisor for Nova Scotia Public Works, he reached out to the construction team, and they've made several contacts with Bell to, you know, proceed and get to move their wires, and it's holding up us as well, because I understand we're doing some work to the Watrose Park over there, and this is holding that up as well. And I just, you know, I'd like a letter sent to Bell. I know it's probably not going to do any good, but maybe we can, and I don't know if we can copy our MLA. Maybe she can. I don't know. I'm just at a loss. I mean, I get my residents saying, well, they should just dig up the. You just can't. You can't do that. Not only you just can't do it. I mean, it's going to affect customers that Bell have in the area. So.
Well, they got to fix it at some point.
Yeah, they got to fix it. So I'm hoping that we can get some, maybe even, I don't know, who knows if the province is actually, I mean, I can, you know, have they contacted, what kind of pressure are they putting on Bell? Who knows? But that's why I'd like a letter sent.
Make a motion.
I'll make that motion, that we send a letter to Bell concerning their moving their underground cable so that the paving project can continue in Western Shore.
Seconder? Second. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And in 5 minutes, we're going to come back.